G'day and welcome to the Larry Lakers from Austin to Australia. The FIBA World Cup is really heating up. There are Lakers everywhere, all over the place in these teams, but most people are asking about one player, and that's Austin Reaves. He played a great role last night, and Australia, they've got games coming up. They've beaten Finland, as shown in this picture here. That was another good game. There's some interesting things happen, some interesting patterns with NBA players in these teams. We'll talk about that and more, and all of your questions. You're listening to and watching the Larry Lakers Dribbling Chit Chat. Well, here's our first slide, of course. Please like, comment, share and subscribe, and please go to the pod. Thank you to everyone who has, because there's great news. We have jumped up there slightly above the NBA front office podcast. People said you'd love to take on Trevor Lane one-on-one, maybe on the court. Look, let's take him on just here in the podcast category. And we've been able to, thanks to you. Thanks for providing the questions, the chit-chat, and for following it. You're listening to the Larry Lakers and viewing it, but please continue to do so. Thanks for all you've done so far. We're very grateful. Here's a question now from Jai, the retro shoe guy. Jai, the retro shoe guy. Let's get straight into it. It's been a cracking start to the World Cup, but are FIBA teams being out NBA'd? I'm not sure if out NBA'd's a word, but it's a good word, and it is something of a pattern, jumping Jai, the retro shoe guy. All of these teams have had starts against the underdogs, and they have jumped them. They have got out there using the FIBA rules where you can have someone in the key defensively. You can perhaps tap the ball off the ring. 5 fouls. So suddenly when you've got 2, what do? Do you sit someone down for the rest of the half? When in the NBA you've got 6 personal fouls, you might wait till someone gets 3 till you sit them down. 3 is getting a little bit late and a little bit risky in the FIBA game. Finland versus Australia, the USA versus New Zealand, both of those teams very close or even behind till half time. We'll talk about that and more. Other games are on. What about Canada? They had a cracking game versus France, and the pattern continued for former Laker, Jordan Clarkson. He had a great game representing the Philippines, 38,000 people in the crowd for the Philippines. Great support, looking for an upset there against the Dominican Republic. They're led by Karl Anthony Towns. The NBA depth or NBA superstars seems to be making a difference. Here's our other nemesis here for the Lakers. Criticised LeBron there in the playoffs, and LeBron sort of bounced back himself, and plenty of people spoke out criticising Dillon Brooks for not having done much, but he is a tough defender, torrid. And Canada really stepped up, and he made a massive difference early. Just when it looked like they were losing their way and France looked like doing whatever they wanted to on offense, he sliced through the key and got a massive dunk, then a couple of spots and missed a jump shot. Then, as he does sometimes, doesn't seem to worry him when he misses, took another 3 and hit it to really make a difference early. Bang, bang. He got them back into the game, got them rolling when nothing was happening there for Canada. Canada-France, a great game. Another close game. The teams with the most NBA depth seem to be getting away in the 3rd and 4th quarters. It's something we're going to raise here on the Larry Lakers, but early on it seems to be the FIBA rules. Other teams are a chance. Could a team possibly upset someone? Because if they can build on these starts, it's something to look for by FIBA and for this World Cup. And it's also great for everyone watching the NBA stars in action, representing their country. And we love seeing former Lakers out and about. The Larry Lakers Canada. Scoreless in the first half was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he ran away with it in the second half. 27 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. Canada were actually 14 down to 18 there at one stage in the first quarter, and by half time it was only 43-40 in favour of Canada, but they really turned up the defence, which worries us. These are signs for FIBA. It's great to have these NBA players playing for their teams, but how does a team like New Zealand compete with the USA when it seems to be that you might get out early, but the NBA talent seems to run out through the third and fourth quarter, run out victors through those quarters. Kelly Olynyk and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, cousin to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they to me were the hidden talents of that first quarter and first half, and Dylan Brooks, who really kicked them off like a bit of an angry microwave, got them started there just, and it looked like not much was happening, and it looked like Evan Fournier would have his way, and the French and Rudy Gobert got a professional foul. He seems to get one every now and then. Again, FIBA rules, this adjustment that NBA players are having to make early. Seems to surprise them in the first half. Can a team get in and hold that surprise element of surprise and underdog story and beat one of these favourite NBA teams? Now, Junior Jono, how did Austin go? Now, that's a great question. He's a Lakers fan down under, and he asked about Austin Reaves, as a lot of people in the Lakers organisation are really impressed with how he's going. Not so much that he's top scoring or getting 50 points or anything, but how he mixes with top-notch company in the NBA, what he's learning, how he's developing, and whether he can bring that back to the Lakers. People are loving that. He's getting this development that the Lakers haven't got to put into him all the time. Fingers crossed, though, they are hoping he can get all of that and come back uninjured. Not only, though, was Austin a highlight, we really need to give some credit to Paulo Banchero. He had the game-high 21 points. Reaves had 12 points and 6 assists. And a third star there was really Halliburton. When those two got going there late in the first quarter, just when they were behind, believe it or not, the underdogs, New Zealand, just as we were talking about, FIBA teams have been able to jump out of the gate and get hold some element of surprise against these NBA teams. Halliburton had 10 points and 4 rebounds and 3 assists. A classy looking player. They've got these taller guards, but they've got depth there. NBA depth seems to be making the difference. It makes a difference if you've got one superstar. They seem to be able to lift teams that would be unlikely to get out of the pool rounds. They seem to get them very close, like Jordan Clarkson did for the Philippines, and Luka Doncic is doing there as well for his teams. But teams struggle to match up to the full NBA depth. And the USA, whether they haven't got the superstars that people will criticise them for not having, like the Dream Team and the Redeem Team, but they do have that depth, and they're able to keep coming at teams in just about all positions in various sorts of mixes, and it seems to wear their opponent out. Let's have a look here at what we're talking about. New Zealand, they really jumped out. New Zealand were 14, the USA were only 5, with 4 minutes 50 left in the first. Now, who could believe that? We had to put that on because we just said it. You wouldn't believe it. But at the end of Austin Reaves was part of this comeback run, or better than a comeback, it was a run to take the lead. But Banchero and Halliburton, great pitcher to have, because they were 3 of the game changers there for the USA. End of the first quarter from this run that Austin Reaves was part of, as was Banchero and Halliburton, the USA snuck back into the game, 19-18, but you wouldn't have thought that would have been the first quarter score. New Zealand managed to score the same again in the second quarter, 18, but they just edged away a little bit there. Only takes 2 3-pointers in a row, or 2 baskets back to back, and it can go quickly with a team like the USA, and suddenly New Zealand are down. That's the challenge. You've nearly got to play the perfect game if you're these Cinderella teams in FIBA. And then it leaked out a little more in the third quarter, but New Zealand, they didn't give up. They were brave. They kept coming at the USA, what tended to happen was these great athletes, they kept rotating the bench. They are so fast, they drive, lean into you, get their shoulder halfway around you, split two defenders and attack the basket. You're slightly off centre and suddenly the foul's against you. You're playing with all this extra energy. You're in energy debt, and because you're playing the big stars, they're jumping into you. You're doing everything you can to stop them. You've got to play offense at the other end, and before you know it, you're on 2-3 fouls, and the coach has got to get you off and find another player. And these countries just don't have the depth of player. If one gets 2-3 fouls against these players driving and penetrating to the key and jumping into them, every now and then they get a surprise and FIBA says that was a travel, that was a charge, and they jump up a little bit confused, the NBA players, as we saw last night, and people seem to like seeing a little bit of that bemused look on the USA and some of the NBA players to have to play to local conditions, but they seem to adjust and really stretch the other team. We look forward to seeing what will happen if they play some teams with a little bit of NBA depth. Here we go. Reaves, Banchero and Halliburton, they were the big difference makers. As we said, one interesting fun fact, Banchero nearly played for Italy. He was interested in playing for Italy. They'd asked him, and it was only recently that he swapped and said, look, I'm not going to end up playing for Italy. The USA have asked me to play, and I'm going to play for the USA. But he could easily have been playing for Italy, which would have strengthened them up. We'll have a look at them. They made it to the World Cup. We'll have a look at their pool a little bit later. Halliburton, as we said, very good. Now, Reaves for the Lakers watchers and for John O Jr., what I liked about the game was every now and then they almost did an Austin on Austin, New Zealand. They did nifty little dribbles and pullbacks and swerve and half spin back the other way, hit a three against Austin, run off a screen. And if Austin's man beat him or tapped the ball or looked like he had a little moment of joy against Austin, the next possession he'd immediately strike back. He'd come off a screen and he hit a beautiful, convincing looking three. Or they'd pressure him, jump up, he looked like he was pressured on the dribble, and then bang, he'd hit a beautiful pass to Banchero, which really was the start of his play. He came up, it looked like, wow, New Zealand are on a run. They pressured Austin. He did a little spin, just looked like he wasn't in full control or looked like he was going to be trapped himself. Bang, throws a fair distance penetrating pass as he can with good power to Banchero, fairly deep in the key from fairly high above the three-point line at a bit of an angle. This is what we're finding with Austin. What do you think? Doesn't look like it's going to be a Michael Jordan supreme athlete blowing by a player physically. You think you've got him sealed or trapped, and he finds something. He just finds something. We hope it's more than just the Linsanity of the past with old Jeremy Lin. We hope this continues to be a growth for the Lakers, as all Lakers fans do. Banchero, again, we wanted to give him credit. Here's a question, though. Did Banchero show Kerr's small ball really works? That's from Jumping Jack at Foley. It must be a horse place. Foley there. Did Banchero show Kerr's small ball works? Well, it certainly did tonight. We wondered whether he needed to get some more minutes for Walker Kessler and test out your traditional bigs, which is very FIBA-like. Should work in FIBA. But Banchero, he really did last night show that the small ball worked. But Jumping Jack, I would wonder whether the depth and switchability wore down New Zealand by getting the Bancheros on. By the second wave of people, you get Jaren Jackson off and you're bringing Banchero on. If Jaren Jackson sits back a little bit, a bit like a rugby league fullback, and protects the key, trying to take advantage of the FIBA rules where you can be in the key a bit longer as a defender compared to the NBA. So if he plays back, then suddenly they've got a switching arrangement coming on when they bring on Banchero. And New Zealand, if they could get around the guards and penetrate the key as they did last night, they couldn't do that continually. It wore them down with the switchability of the USA by bringing on these mobile players that are still quite big compared to these other nations. They're eventually going to run out of fouls and bigs to try and match it up physically with this team. So despite not having the super duper duper stars that they've been criticised for not bringing, this team looks like they're gelling. I love the fact, though, that New Zealand asked a lot of questions. They were very, very brave, and they didn't give up there in those third quarters. It is important to get your points right in this competition because the spread of points, the aggregate, or the difference, sorry, could be what breaks the tiebreaker. So you've got to keep playing all the way to the fourth quarter. Now, let's have a look at Australia beating Finland. This game is repeating this pattern where the teams with the most NBA players seem to be challenged early by the FIBA interpretations of rules, the underdogs, or a team that has one NBA superstar. In this case, Finland had Lauri Markkanen. And Markkanen seemed to be giving Australia trouble in the first quarter, certainly. He was slipping through. Australia were behind 21-17. Finland also played a whole lot of medium bigs. So that was a little bit like watching Cleveland, except probably more forwards. It looked like it was nearly 5 small ball forwards and Lauri Markkanen as a finesse sort of centre. And suddenly Australia had to match them. So do you go small? Do you use your... Australia's lucky to have a number of medium-sized players themselves. Probably one of the strengths of Australia this year is that they can put on a lot of big medium wings and match up with teams, but struggling a little bit for bigs behind Duop Breath. And how do we defend point of attack defenders if they're small and zippy like they were against Brazil? But Finland went away from that. They went with 5 medium bigs on the court at all time, meaning their ball carrier had good skills for his height. But Australia struggled a little early against that and made some adjustments. It was very close at half time, but then they were able to just edge away. You always thought Finland could get 2 stops in a row and suddenly they're 6 points back. So if you're up 8, 10, 12 and suddenly you miss 2 stops, the other team suddenly is back to 1 or 2 position game. It was a nervous game like that. You were worried that Lauri Markkanen could bring them back, but they managed to quieten him down in the second half. So it was a great effort there from Australia defensively. Who else stood out there? 11 of 22. The question is going to come up about Patty Mills, no doubt. While Joe Ingles, so Patty Mills 25, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 11 of 22. Is he back? I think someone's going to ask us about that soon. While Joe Ingles, of course, 13 points. His veteran leadership, no panicking when the defence is really turning up. The shots aren't dropping. He doesn't seem to panic. Maybe athletically there's not going to be an accelerated panic with Joe Ingles. He keeps his 2 feet solidly on the ground, doesn't seem to overcommit to anything or overplay his hand. And Dante Exum, we'll comment about him. I thought he had a great game. I'd like to see him on more. Of course, that brings the question up, though. Is it at the expense of Patty Mills or Josh Giddey? But Dante Exum, 10 points, 4 assists. And it was only in 16 minutes. And the final quarter, Australia did well there. So they pushed out that difference rather than let it sort of slip in a 1 or 2 game possession and suddenly you're nervous. They just edged away bit by bit. Josh Giddey. People want to know about Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey flirted with a triple-double, of course, finishing with 14 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. But I'm still worried about his outside shooting. I think he's just got to push up the shot as best he can, because if he can land one every now and then, he should, in theory, get to 30%. And 30% would be enough to keep them honest. We'll just keep the defence, keeping a little eye on him. He's strong enough to penetrate with the ball because he's so big and tall. He's got control of the ball, hasn't got that explosive speed, but he's a bit sneaky good at getting to the ring, a bit better than people realise, Josh Giddey. For Finland, Lauri Markkanen, he had a great game there, but it was the 8 rebounds, 4 assists. It was the first half where he really troubled Australia, and you were just worried that he might go on a bit of a run in the second half, but it just didn't really arise. Slamming Sam Huggs aloft. Slamming Sam Huggs aloft. I've heard this young fellow might be a balloon pilot or something. Slamming Sam Huggs aloft. Does this mean Paddy is back? 25 points, 8 rebounds, 4 steals. Whoop. I still thought he looked a bit shaky. I'm excited. I'm really happy with the stats. But what did the eye test say there, Slamming Sam? I think there were moments where it looked like he was forcing the ball. It was a little bit fake it till you make it. I'm really happy for him. I hope it continues. Some of the shots rattled around, rattled up, down, off the backboard and in for the three-pointer. Thank gosh they went in, but we'll take them and we'll hope it's something he's building on. Paddy Mills, we hope he's back. It wasn't as convincing as the stats perhaps in the eye test. We look forward to the next game this afternoon versus Germany. At Clayto at Mavs. Now, Clayto, I believe, is a big Mavs supporter, and he's asked about Josh Green, but then he's thrown one in because a few people forget that other than Josh Green being at the Mavs, the comeback man who's had to go back to Europe and earn his way back into the NBA, Dante Exum, will also go to the Mavs this year. Now, Josh Green, well, he'd been banged up. He'd bumped a knee and he'd been on an elbow injury prior to that. He came on for Australia and made a difference straight away. He mixed it up with Markkanen, and I hope Markkanen's all right, but he fronted him mid-court, as we said, ball carrying wise. They were playing so many mediums and bigs that various big players had to bring the ball up, and just on halfway, he slid across there. It was blocking foul on Josh Green, but in doing so, he took the bump, and you're worried just as much against a bigger player, 7-footer, that Josh Green would be the one limping off. But he got off the ground with a bit of a limp there, did Lauri Markkanen. So hopefully he's all right. But it just showed Josh Green was willing to get straight in, mix it up defensively. He can defend a taller player, or perhaps might be our chance to replace that Delhi type player. Someone called him, Coach Gorgian called him in Sports Illustrated article for the Mavs, called him Delhi on steroids, that maybe he can mix up that point of attack defence. If they look like taking advantage of Josh Giddey's lateral speed, maybe a Josh Green should be on the court to take a bit of an advantage. Again, a question comes up, is that at the expense of Paddy Mills? Do you let Paddy Mills try and defend them for a little while? I'd really like to see one other thing there, Clayto at Mavs. It brings me to the next question. I'd like to see these two on together. They were for a little while in the second half, but I think it was more a case of resting those guys, Josh Giddey and Paddy Mills. But for a little while, these two are on together, or sometimes because of his height, he could leave Josh Giddey on. And because of the height of these two guys, if you're willing to play three guards, Gorgian could possibly leave Paddy Mills on. I wouldn't do it for a long time in rotation, but how about this? These are two I'm really calling for. I want to see these two guys on. Why? Big, strong, Dante Exum can get to the ring, but I'm worried about our three-point shooting. I know Paddy Mills got some, but before we get carried away, look, it was a bit dusty for everyone in Australia coming in. We haven't seen much of Josh Green. I think these two guys might be better at being our three-point shooters at the moment than some of their more fancied court time players that are getting more minutes. There's not a lot of minutes for these guys, but the game changed when they were on and they looked calm and strong with the ball. Plus, I think they could hit the three, and at the moment, it's an area of need. Let's get on with it here. Australia, Deacon and Dawson, what other positions impressed you? Deacon, Big Jack White plays well beyond his size. Have a look at him here compared to Ingles and Xavier Cooks. This guy comes in and backs up Nick Kay to some extent, overlaps some of Nick Kay's power forward and possibly the three. So he'll come in and he's built like he's a little bit undersized for a three. He's a two-guard body and he's playing as a three, but he will mark a four at times. So that switchiness that we talk about the USA having, Coach Gorgian can be happy that this guy will come in. He's very athletic. He got a beautiful dunk there in the game in the second half. Jack White from OKC, so he'll team up with Josh Giddey this coming season. He backs up Nick Kay, and Nick Kay, what a worker. Like, if you talk about, I think we had a question from a rugby league fan, said who are the nut trackers, the people that'll just nut truckers, cart up the ball like a truck or a bulldozer and take a hit and do the workman-like blue-collar work. Well, Nick Kay, he's still got the stitches in one eyebrow from an elbow that accidentally hit him again from a Laker, Wenyan Gabriel, in a warm-up game against South Sudan. Diop Reath, we called it here that Diop will get from his play in this World Cup, that Diop will get an NBA offer. We hope he does. He played for Portland in the Summer League, but Diop, now Australia's only big, that Jock Landale, they're saying it's likely he might miss the entire World Cup. Xavier Cook, still classy. There was a little play there. They went down under the rim. He turned his back to it slightly. Exum in transition or a little bit of broken play. Handed the ball off because Exum's big enough and strong enough that they're worried they've got to cover him. They collapsed to him. He turned it back and a very athletic dunk. Xavier Cooks, the Washington Wizards, Australians and NBA fans and NBL fans, because he was the MVP in the NBL for Sydney Kings. Look forward to seeing what he'll do this season and in the rest of FIBA. People ask me about the groups. I think we'll talk about the groups more and more in the podcast because people might not want to just watch one man and a whole lot of slides, but let's run through it quickly. You've got to be first or second in your group of four to go through. So those who are in the bottom two in their group, they'll obviously go. So you get 3 games. You play everyone in your group once. These are the locations they're in: Manila, Okinawa, Japan, and Jakarta. So, Indonesia. So what's going on here? Already there are wins here for, I believe, the Dominicans and the Italians. So they're now on the safe side of the group and people have got to beat them. South Sudanese, they're in a group there with Serbia, and I believe Serbia and Puerto Rico have already had a win. So these teams, if you get one upset, you only got 3 games in your pool, suddenly you're in trouble. The USA's had a win, as have in that group Greece. So they're on the top half now, and these other guys, New Zealand and Jordan, have got to try and win all of their remaining games, okay? So over here in this group, Lithuania is there with big Jonas Valanciunas, and I believe they are up with a win as well there, as is Montenegro. Now, let's have a look down here. This is the group, I hope it's not the group of death, but Australia's got to come up with a win tonight. They're playing Germany, Australia versus Germany. Japan, the host. How hard will that game be in Okinawa? There's going to be plenty of screaming fans there. So you can't make a mistake. This is going to be a tough night. The good news is Australia's done the right thing and got the win against Finland. And so they go in with 1 win, as do Germany. So there's going to be pressure on these 2 teams. They're the 2 winners. Someone's going to be down 1 in the record tonight. So we hope it's not Australia. Slovenia, I believe Luka Doncic is playing for them. And let's see who else has won in that group. I believe it's Georgia who's had the other win in this group. So Australia's last warm-up game was against Georgia, and they've got a couple of former NBA players. Venezuela will be very good as well. So in terms of a basketball World Cup experience, So in there, that little battle there for second, I think Slovenia and Georgia are probably a little classier. Venezuela would be the team to possibly upset them. But let's have a look here. Spain has had a win, and Brazil there against Iran and the Ivory Coast. And over here, Canada. Now, they're the team that worry me. They look fantastic. Last night against France, again, the NBA depth. The longer the game went, the team with the most NBA talent, and then if you've got a superstar, that really made a difference. So if you're just like Slovenia and you've got folks with a little bit of NBA experience, great European experience, and one superstar like Luka Doncic, or like Finland where you had one superstar in the form there of Lauri Markkanen, or at least an all-star, probably not at the superstar class of Luka Doncic. These teams are standing out, but the ones that also have depth. So Canada has the Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but then they're showing all this depth there down to Kelly Olynyk, Powell in the centres. They're showing depth across all positions. I think Lebanon and Latvia, they'll be hard-pressed. Latvia would have been great maybe with Porzingis if he'd come to play, but he wasn't able to. So Canada, they're one of the teams I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing in this FIBA World Cup. More on all of this in the podcast. Big Fins at Stacks of Wins. Thank you. And what is next? Well, as per the slide, Big Fins at Stacks of Wins. We play Germany. Nesbitt at B-Ball just never quits. Nesbitt at B-Ball never quits. Can Australia really beat Germany tonight? Well, they've got the former Laker Dennis Schroeder, Mo Wagner, USA next game. They have to play Greece. But for us, we'll be playing tonight, fingers crossed, against Dennis Schroeder and Mo Wagner. Until next time, good luck, Boomers. Please like, comment and share and subscribe, but please also go to the pod. Have a safe and healthy week, and as they say, keep dribbling the chit-chat. Thank you. Until next time, goodbye.